Have you ever helped someone, truly gone out of your way for them, only to be forgotten the moment they no longer needed you? Why is it that people remember betrayal for years but forget kindness in weeks? Machiavelli once said, "Gratitude fades faster than love." And as harsh as it sounds, he might be right. In relationships, in business, even in family, people often move on from those who helped them without a second thought. Not because they're evil, but because gratitude has no survival value. Not in the cold logic of power, influence, or even emotion. We cling to love, even toxic love. But gratitude, it expires, quietly, quickly, sometimes before you even realize it's gone. This video explores a bitter truth that most of us don't want to face. Why gratitude is more fragile than we think, and why expecting it might be the fastest way to get hurt. Let's dive into the uncomfortable wisdom of Machiavelli, and what it means for your real life. Gratitude is often seen as a moral virtue, something we should all practice and expect in return. But in reality, it's one of the most short-lived emotions in human psychology. Psychological studies have shown that the brain responds more strongly to resentment than to gratitude. We're hardwired to remember pain longer than kindness. Why? Because gratitude doesn't protect us from danger, but remembering betrayal might. And this has real-world consequences. Leaders who expect loyalty based on past generosity are often blindsided. Friends who once stood by you can disappear when you no longer benefit them. Even in families, people who sacrifice the most are sometimes the least appreciated. Machiavelli didn't say this to be cruel. He said it to be realistic. He believed that depending on gratitude makes you weak in a world driven by self-interest. So the question is, should we stop being kind? Or is there a smarter way to give without expecting anything in return? This is where psychology and power collide. Let's break it down. Gratitude rarely screams, but love does. Love demands attention. It knocks on your door at 2 a.m., disrupts your thoughts, and insists on being acted upon. Gratitude, by contrast, is a whisper, quiet, reflective, and easy to ignore. That difference in emotional urgency is why love persists and gratitude fades. Consider this. When someone falls in love, they feel a psychological compulsion to express it, to text, to chase, to do. Love activates deep evolutionary circuits in the brain: dopamine for desire, oxytocin for bonding, cortisol for anxiety. Gratitude, while still rewarding, activates milder neural patterns. A study from the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley found that while gratitude journaling can improve well-being, it lacks the hormonal intensity of emotional bonds like romantic love or fear-based attachment. This is why relationships built on love, even toxic love, often last longer than bonds built on kindness alone. People cling to love because it fills a need. Gratitude? It's more like a reflection in the rearview mirror, present but shrinking with distance. Machiavelli observed this long before neuroscience did. He warned rulers not to rely on goodwill because it lacks staying power. And he was right. People rarely act out of gratitude, but they will act out of fear, desire, or love. In a world wired for urgency, the soft emotions get lost. Gratitude simply doesn't shout loud enough. Gratitude lives in the past. Love lives in the present and fights for the future. Gratitude is a reflection. Thank you for what you did. But love is an engine. I still need you. That simple distinction explains why one fades while the other lingers. Love is tied to survival, emotional, social, even physical. It fills a deep, primal need to connect, to belong, to feel protected. Gratitude, while noble, is a response to something already done. It doesn't bind us in the same way. Psychologist Abraham Maslow, in his hierarchy of needs, placed love and belonging as core human motivations, necessities that drive action. Gratitude never makes the list. Why? Because it's not essential for survival. It's a bonus, appreciated but not required. A 2011 study in emotion found that while gratitude boosts short-term prosocial behavior, its effects diminish quickly without continuous reinforcement. Meanwhile, love, even when painful or unreciprocated, can drive people to irrational extremes just to preserve it. In real life, we see this play out constantly. A parent may love their child endlessly, even if the child shows no gratitude. A parent may love their child endlessly, even if the child shows no gratitude. But rarely does someone cling to another just because they feel grateful. Machiavelli understood this brutal hierarchy of emotions. He knew that loyalty built on memory would never rival loyalty born from need. Because people don't chase what they remember, They chase what they can't live without. Gratitude, for all its beauty, can quietly bruise the ego, while love often feeds it. To express true gratitude is to admit you needed someone, that you were vulnerable, dependent, perhaps even powerless in a moment that mattered. And for many people, especially in individualistic cultures, that admission is deeply uncomfortable. It disrupts the self-image of independence and control. Gratitude says, "You helped me because I couldn't help myself." The ego hates that. Psychologist Robert Emmons, one of the leading researchers on gratitude, found that while gratitude increases well-being, it also requires humility and openness to acknowledge our limitations. But humility isn't always welcome. Especially in environments of competition or pride, people will reinterpret their past to avoid feeling indebted. That's why ex-employees say they succeeded on their own, or adult children rewrite their upbringing to downplay parental sacrifice. It's a psychological self-defense mechanism, protect the ego at all costs. Love, on the other hand, often works the opposite way. Makes people feel chosen, special, worthy. Love validates the self, even if it's irrational or unhealthy. Nietzsche warned of this inversion in morality, how people reshape values to maintain a sense of superiority. Machiavelli understood it too. He knew that giving someone a reason to love you was more powerful than giving them a reason to thank you. Because in the battle between memory and identity, identity almost always wins. But what if Machiavelli was only half right? What if gratitude doesn't disappear because people are selfish, but because we gave it with strings attached? We often expect gratitude to return in loyalty, praise, or reciprocity. But that's not true generosity. That's emotional debt collection. And when people don't pay us back the way we hoped, we call them ungrateful, even if they did appreciate us, just not in the form we demanded. The Stoics believe that virtue is its own reward, that doing good should be independent of recognition. Seneca wrote, "He who gives only to receive has already sold the gift." So maybe the problem isn't that gratitude fades too fast. Maybe it's that we confuse gratitude with obligation, and in doing so, poison the very kindness we offered. This flips the entire equation. Are others truly ungrateful? Or did we give expecting love and feel betrayed when we only got silence? In the end, perhaps real power isn't in being remembered, but in learning to give without the need to be. We all want to believe that our kindness will be remembered, that the people we helped will hold us in their hearts, even when we're no longer in the picture. But reality is quieter than that. People forget, not always out of malice, but because life moves fast and memory is selective. Machiavelli's harsh truth reminds us, power built on gratitude is fragile. But there's something liberating in that knowledge. When you stop expecting return, your generosity becomes lighter. You give because it's who you are, not because you're hoping to be etched into someone else's story. Gratitude may fade, but integrity, the kind that expects nothing and endures everything, leaves a mark far deeper than thanks ever could.